Okay, so Dr. Susan Keiffer is the author of Closer to the Sun, a recipe book for health for the next evolutionary phase of mankind, which includes 33 chapters. I haven't read them all yet, on what happened to our food supply and how it has been purposely changed, as well as 200 recipes using food as medicine. She is also the author of Wild Edibles for Survival and First Aid, which contains over 100 plants in local Florida backyards. Oh, by the way, after your talk last time, I went home to look for all my Spanish needles, and darn it, I had weeded them all, but I have all cute little babies coming back. Yeah. We never have to worry about running out of them, so that's the good thing. She is a master herbalist, iridologist, sclerologist. Yeah, I don't say that word very often. And has studied with the great health pioneers of the past 100 years, including Dr. Bernard Jensen, Dr. John Christopher, Dr. David Christopher, Dr. Max Gerson, Dr. Ellen Tart. I like that last name. Dr. David Pesic and Dr. Leonard Melmauer. Can I keep this? Because I'd like to Google some of these people. What do all these great health leaders have in common? They all wanted to educate people on how to use food as medicine and how to heal using nature's herbs and plants. That's what I believe in. She holds numerous degrees in the fields of biology and animal science from the University of Connecticut, where she was a pre-med major. After graduating, she turned more towards natural healing instead and earned her master's degree from the School of Natural Healing. She is also certified in the Gerson cancer therapy, raw food culinary classes, and has earned her doctorate from the University of Metaphysical Sciences. She wrote her thesis paper on the healing energies of plants. Okay, thank you. Here is Susan. Yay!
Okay, I'm just going to test everything out. Oh, we got to put the PowerPoint up.
Oh, yeah. That'd be good if I do that.
Okay, so thank you for allowing me to return to your wonderful luncheons in this beautiful county. Since I live in Sebastian, we don't nearly have this kind of a group in Sebastian. There is an Indian River one, but not in Sebastian. So as she read, I have studied all of this type of stuff for over 25 years now. I will be 60 in another year. So just to give you my age, because that's important, because I have to be a walking role model for what I'm about to show you.
Right.
Yes. All right, so using food as medicine. This is my book, which you might have seen over here, called Closer to the Sun, and I want to explain that title. It really means eat closer to the sun, because the sun is the source of all food on the planet. The only thing that can turn sunlight into food is the chlorophyll molecule, which is in green plants. We are not plants, so we can't yet do that. Supposedly there are breatharians who can work with that, but that's not where we're at right now. So if you don't have chlorophyll, the sun is what is creating the food source on the planet. So when the herbivore eats the plant, it actually loses 90% of that direct sunlight. So the herbivore is only getting is losing 10 times the power of the sun. If you eat, when the carnivore eats the herbivore who ate the plant, again, loses 100 times now the power of the original source of all food on the planet, the sun. When we eat the carnivore that ate the herbivore that ate the plant, we lose 1,000 times the power of the sun in its direct form. So this is going to come back around as I continue. And when you cook that food, in addition to eating such a far removed source of the sun, you destroy 100% of the life force, which are the living, breathing enzymes, because they get destroyed at 115 degrees, basically. So if you have a dehydrator, there are recipes in my book where you can feel like you're eating something that's cooked, I guess, but it still has the living enzymes. So here are Curlian photography pictures showing that life force in a cooked tomato versus a raw tomato. And I have several other pictures, not in this slideshow, but to illustrate. Okay, so as you mentioned, I'm an iridologist and a sclerologist. So what that means is I take photos of the eyes. In the eyes, you can see all the tissues and organs and conditions in the body because it's actually brain tissue. It's literally an extension of your brain, the way when you're in a fetus, that the eyes form off of the brain. The way a crab, has those extensions of the eyes, that's kind of literally what we have, except we're encased in a skull in addition. But we have, the eyes are, you can think of them as the monitors, and the brain is the central processing unit. So the brain needs sunlight, which is partly why we have the eyes in addition. If you weren't getting sunlight through the pupils, your brain would be suffering. The pineal gland would be suffering. The adrenal glands would be suffering as well. So it's actually recommended not to always wear sunglasses so that you can, especially in the early morning when the sun's first rising and at the end of the day. That's what sun gazing, it actually strengthens your adrenal glands. If you
You're
can.
not supposed to have contacts on either, right? Or can you?
It's mostly about blocking the light. So the contacts aren't like blocking the light. But when I take the pictures of the eyes, which is kind of like looking at an x-ray of the insides of the body, these are what I typically see over and over and over again in most humans on the planet Earth where we live. It's pretty standard to see something called a cardiovascular bulge, which appears, in a photo. And I mean, if you ever wanted me to show you the photos and educate you on how that is, yes.
If you're blind, would you be more susceptible to those kind of conditions?
No, not at all. This isn't like an ophthalmologist or an optometrist. This is just using the eyes as a way to see the insides of the body, because 28,000 nerve endings from all over the body all end in the eyes, in the iris specifically. 28,000 nerve endings, so whenever those nerve endings are compromised and the energy is blocked or congested, or it's a weak signal, it doesn't have that strength traveling all the way to the eyes, and it will show up as a different color, a different indent in the living tissue, which the iris is. You can see literally everything. So this is what shows up. The cardiovascular bulge is a combination of too much fat and plaque in the arteries. I always typically see calcium being deposited and not returned back into the bones. It's being taken out of the bones, but it's not going back into the bones. And that has to do a lot with the parathyroid gland. But those are two little rice-sized grains of, about the size of a grain of rice that sit on the thyroid. And their job is literally to control calcium metabolism in the body. And for whatever reason, most people's parathyroid glands are not properly working and show congestion, a lot of times from drugs or chemical interference, which is everywhere around us. It's not just pharmaceuticals, it's in the water, in the food, it's in the air, it's in the products you put on your skin, it's in, even hair dyes and clothing and cleaning products in your house. Thyroid gland issues is very common to see. Almost 100% of people are working with an underactive thyroid. Acidic tissues versus alkaline tissues is how anaerobic bacteria and pathogens would be attracted, and abnormal tissue growth can only occur in acidic tissues with a pH that's too acidic, where our blood has to be 7.4 at all times. So if you veer more than 0.2 in either direction, your body is going to send out the alarms to grab that calcium out of the bones to buffer the pH, because otherwise you would die. So this is how your body works to help you. And our bodies can take lots and lots and lots and lots of abuse for a long, long, long time. So So acidic tissues is a problem for most people. In the eyes, you can see where toxins originated and then where they're spreading to from that organ into the next organ or gland. You can just follow it along, like what caused what, where did it start, where is it ending, so you can see relationships. One of the most common ones is always the intestines is always involved. Yes.
Now, so when you look at somebody's eyes, you could tell what the problem could be?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And then if you want, when it's pinpointed like that, then you can go get another exam by somebody else that could just target at least that one area instead of just trying to guess with a blood test or a random x-ray where they don't even know where to start. So typically the intestines, which are centrally located in the body, where 95% of all things going right or wrong in the body are based on how well or not well your intestines are working. They're actually a hollow tube that is, in a way, an external tissue because it really doesn't, it's a hollow tube inside our bodies. I actually wrote an article for Hippocrates Health magazine down in West Palm Beach, comparing our intestines to bacteria that you would want the good bacteria in there compared to the soil versus, if you have a compost pile and you're putting meat in there and, flesh insteed of plant matter, you're going to attract cockroaches, maggots, slugs, all those pathogens you don't want versus for worms even, they don't want to eat that stuff either. They want all plant matter, and the same thing with your intestines. It's almost literally like a worm, to be honest. So we are 10 trillion human cells, but 100 trillion non-human beneficial microorganisms that are all working together in our ecosystem inside the skin, which is the largest organ in the body. So yes, from the intestines, the toxins spread into the kidneys next, which these are both considered organs of elimination or channels of elimination, the way toxins leave the body, but this is where they're getting all backed up, in the intestines and the kidneys, and then from there to the pancreas. So sugar metabolism, we don't have the same language as the AMA, the medical world. Those are actually patented words, they're diseases. No one else can use them. It's illegal to use one of them. So we have our own way of saying things. So sugar metabolism disorders, iron metabolism disorders.
Would the sugar metabolism disorder be diabetes?
It would be on its way to that, if not that. Like hypoglycemia would be their word as well. Calcium, I mentioned already, metabolism disorders. So in other words, the body not being able to metabolize properly. These main areas, sugar, iron, calcium. The brain very, very often is showing not getting enough glucose, which the brain runs almost 100% on glucose. And so does the liver, and so does the pancreas. If any of you took biology in school, even in high school, you might remember the Krebs cycle. Anybody remember that Krebs cycle?
I remember the name.
Yeah, KREB. So that starts with a glucose molecule. It does not start with a protein molecule. It starts with glucose, and the end result is ATP, which is energy. So if you want energy in your body, it's glucose that is going to give that to you. Glucose is what's going to make your brain function better, clearer, longer, and the same with the liver, all the 5,000 things the liver does. It needs glucose. More about that later. So I also see too much fat from fried or heated oils, and of course all animal products are full of fat. So basically, even if you're sauteing vegetables, a lot of people will tell me, I'm a vegetarian, but I see all this excess lipids in their eyes. So I say, do you saute your vegetables? The answer is always yes. And typically, it's leaking out of the eyelids, which is one of the finest capillary beds and tissues being represented in the body, but really that's happening all over the body. Too much lipids in the blood from sauteing vegetables. So keep that in mind.
You're okay if you use olive oil?
Well, so that's the thing about olive oil. Everybody tells you get cold pressed extra virgin olive oil, which is made from pressing the olives the first time without any heat. So it's cold pressed, it's the first pressing, that's why it's extra virgin. But in order to get more oil out of the olives, then they have to heat the olives. And then that's no longer a cold pressed olive oil. But when you buy cold pressed extra virgin olive oil, and then you use it to saute things in, you might as well get the other kind. Because it's no longer raw, and you've changed it now into a heated, rancid oil that your liver is going to hate. What was your question?
Yeah, I was wondering if it was just oils or butters too, any of that.
Yes. Olive oil is the best, but it should be raw.
So if you were sauteing something, would you use olive oil or would you use coconut oil?
You wouldn't
or-
saute at all.
Don't put that-
No. Heated oils, it's gonna clog up the liver. Just keep that in mind. It's your choices, you know, everybody, we have a smorgasbord of food available to us on the planet. We're no longer pioneers traveling on the Oregon Trail. We're like, you know, using, if anybody saw the 1863 series, you know, where I was looking like, what can they eat? So they, you know, brought their cattle along with them. But it's not like that anymore. We have stores that produce everything you could possibly want in such abundance. Like even the fast food restaurants selling their chicken nuggets and chicken sandwiches and all that in abundance everywhere in the world. But then I always said, well, where are the chickens? Where are all these chickens that they're using for this? They're not like wandering around on farms. Where are they? Where are they getting all of these chickens from? So they're in chicken factories, of course. But in addition, and I actually made a YouTube about this if you wanted to ever look at it. It's called Sustainability: Is the Earth Dying? And that was because this was like 10 years ago. I was noting, you know, that seagrasses were saying like they're 98% gone and all these different ecosystems. It was always like 98%, 97% gone in the Gulf of Mexico and just all over the planet. And so at that time, my son was 10 and I said, what do you make of this? Look at all these things that are 97, 98% gone. And I made a list of them. And I said, what do you think about that? And he goes, the earth is dying. So that's what the title of my YouTube is the earth dying? And I compare all of the ecosystems and the plants and all these statistics and our own health as a result, and also how our health and our food choices are contributing to what's happening to the planet. Because yes, they're raising chickens as an example, but they're raising these chickens in a way that I show pictures on there. Again, it's on YouTube. You can go look at it. It's an hour and 45 minutes long. You know, like for instance, where they have Kentucky Fried Chicken is making GMO chickens, which have like 12 wings on each one and no feathers. You know, for all those wings, everybody's eating wings. Where are all those wings coming from? So anyway, that's just one example you can look at. But what was your question?
It wasn't a question. We were talking about olive oil, or all olive oils aren't olive oil. Pure olive oil.
Right, some of them are blends.
Right, so when you buy olive oil.
I guess if you got organic,
Yeah.
extra, I mean, that's all we can do. Like a lot of things are listed as organic and maybe there's something wrong with it, or it was wind pollinated. You know, like they said, there's no such thing as organic corn anymore because of the wind pollination, you know, things like that. But we just do the best we can. That's all we can do. We're all on this one planet and that's all we got.
You feel that some things are worth getting organic?
Oh yeah, there's definitely a list of things I would definitely get organic, such as carrots, celery, beets. Things I wouldn't care about so much are avocados or bananas, even though now there's a lot of organic bananas like at Sam's or BJ's, if you remember there. But anything that has like the skin coating is not, you know, as critical as being like an apple. Definitely should be organic because they spray the apples so much that it's designed so that the rain can't even wash it off, you know, the pesticides. And that, a lot of that history is in my book too, about how the Firefox series and the Appalachian Mountain people were, back then, they were talking about how they never used to have to spray anything because they didn't have all these monocrops, and they remember those times. And then they remember what changed once they started planting tons of apple trees, for instance, and, at the time, what they were using for fertilizer. Anyway, I do a lot of history in there, like the history of sugar, which is fascinating, the history of sugar. Even something like beer was considered a healthy beverage for pregnant women back in the beginning. It was considered liquid bread and healthy, and it was recommended by doctors for pregnant women to drink. And that was before they had sugar added to it. And once people started adding sugar, they were being arrested, like their breweries were being raided, and they were being arrested if they were found to have sugar. And I think some of them were even getting hung. And the sugar, originally, like on the plantations where they were growing sugar cane, anybody eating the sugar cane directly out of the field, they were healing mouth ulcers and cancer of the mouth from eating the raw, sugar cane right out of the ground. But the processed white sugar, which is more concentrated than cocaine, and it's not a food at all. It is a definite drug. It stimulates the same area of the brain as cocaine. And it's super highly addicting. And nowadays, everybody wants their Starbucks, coffee with all their fancy sweeteners, which they call adult chocolate milk. But all those sweeteners, you think you're using that to give your brain a boost in the morning? Everybody who's using coffee in that way, thinking it's caffeine. And I mentioned this last time. Caffeine is really just stimulating the adrenal gland to secrete adrenaline, and you're actually running on adrenaline, not caffeine. But the real way to stimulate your brain and give yourself the energy is glucose, which is from fruit or dates. Okay, so let me continue.
You said fruit or dates?
Dates. I'm going to talk more about dates. Very, very important. Okay, so also what shows in the eyes are if someone suppresses their emotions all the time and stuffs their emotions and doesn't let things out and doesn't discuss things, those actually affect most every organ in the body. There's actually an emotional organ location for every emotion, like if it's grief affecting, there's an emotional pancreas section versus the physical. And when somebody has a large loss in their life, like a loved one or a pet or some traumatic loss, they can actually start craving sweets more because they want to replace the sweetness that has gone out of their life. So they're using sugary sweet foods to replace an emotion. And so that shows up in the emotional pancreas, and there's an emotional stomach area versus the physical stomach, where if somebody is making food choices out of emotions versus what's actually your better option at that time. So you can see, like, if emotions are the cause, is what I'm trying to say. And the NREs are negative reactive emotions, like inside your own head. If you hear news about something or just a random neutral conversation, but yet it triggers something in your head, like on a chronic basis, that is always negative in your own mind. You don't even have to be speaking the words. But there is a place called the emotional tongue, which does show if somebody's always like swearing or saying a lot of angry words. It actually shows up in this emotional tongue area. And it's amazing how I can look at all this, write my report without the person telling me anything. And, it's interesting. So, and the Oedipal signs have to do with also emotions based on your parents and feeling betrayed or lacking trust at an early age with your opposite sex parent. That's what the Oedipal word comes from. So, like, in other words, between the ages of 2 and 3, typically, when a child, a baby, first stops realizing, I don't have to just stick to my mother all the time, and they start becoming more aware of their surroundings as they start walking around, at 2 or 3 years old. So let's say you're a baby girl and, you become aware, like, oh, I have a daddy, I don't just have a mommy. I'm not just an amoeba on my mom, So you become aware of the daddy's role as a girl. And then, you know, at that point, you hear a lot of times the typical thing is like the daddy might be holding the baby girl, and then mom comes over and the baby will be like, no, my daddy, and, you know, pushing even the mother away, like being possessive, you know, about the dad. And we think that's all innocent and everything, but yet when later they see the dad, like maybe having an affectionate kiss with the mom, or, you know, giving her the attention, then that 2-year-old mind actually can start saying, what? You're betraying me, you know, you like in a subconscious way. And this is actually proven, and it can be an underlying subconscious program that continues to run and affect other relationships with men in your life, going all the way till you stop the programming, which is it's a subconscious thing, so you're not always aware of it. And the same thing with boys with their moms. And so at some point they just feel like they lost trust and feel betrayed. And oftentimes people tell me it's present day, you know, not just something that happened. But anyway, those lines affect the physical body, because there's like, the physical body is the last thing to show symptoms from something that started as an emotion or even a spiritual lack of connection. And the physical body is the last place that shows up. And the proof of this is with multiple personality disorders. There can be, like, let's just say there's a split personality inside a person, and you know how they can flip back and forth like very rapidly, like immediately everything changes about that person, how they walk, how they talk, you know, what their hobbies, interests are. But in addition, what also changes is whether they still have cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure. All those things are immediately gone and different in the other personality in just a split second. They don't have the same. So it's personality driven. What you can change things if you change your emotions, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so, and those you can compare photos too, and you can see the changes happening very quickly in the white parts, the scleras. So I also see a lot of low oxygen. Most people have a bluish tint to their scleras. The liver is commonly overwhelmed, too much fats, too much processed foods. I mean, the job of the liver in today's world is just overwhelming. So anything you can do to help the liver, you're gonna help your whole body. I see Wi-Fi radiation damage, which affects the connective tissues in the brain. You know, wherever you're carrying your phone, typically, I'll ask the person, do you always carry it in your back pocket, in your front pocket, you know, in a pocket near your chest area, or are you always wearing a Bluetooth or using wireless, you know, headphone sets? And it's dramatic for people. I know, like, my brother-in-law constantly has a Bluetooth. He's an attorney, and the lines in his brain area are purple. They're so chronic versus red. Typically, they would be red or pink.
So I think I heard somewhere you should never put a phone up to your heart, chest area. Is that correct?
Yeah, so you should never have the phone in contact with any part of your body. You should always, I really hate cell phones myself. I still have a home landline, but you know, definitely like talk to it like this, or have those connected wires, because of course today's world, you have to have a cell phone. I mean, I tried for a long time to get away with not having one, but even in returning something to a store, you know, they won't even give you a thing you can print out a lot of times anymore. So the world, you have to live with the world you have. But there are things you can use to protect yourself from Wi-Fi, which is everywhere. It's literally everywhere, which are certain jewelries. They say like shungite, obsidian, black tourmaline have been proven to have more properties that can repel and protect you. There's other things like organite. I mean, these kinds of things I put in my report if you happen to see me. But also, a lot of people are low in hydrochloric acid in their stomachs, not producing enough hydrochloric acid, which is why a lot of times people are getting heartburn, not because they have too much, but because they don't have enough and the food is coming back up undigested. So the solution isn't to take an antacid and make it even less. The solution is the real solution would be like I'm going to talk about some of this, but something like lemon water daily or celery juice until you get that balanced. A lot of people used to say apple cider vinegar, but we have since learned fermented foods, your liver hates just as much as alcohol. So the other thing is, yeah, various stages of abnormal tissue growth. You can see where it might be starting and how advanced it might be. So it gives you early warning. Consider this a lot of times early warning, but sometimes it's, not so early. And then parasites, there's 10 types of parasites. So these are common in so many people. I feel like I write the same information over and over and over in my reports. So how do we deal with all this without medicine and pharmaceuticals, which is the only thing doctors can offer you? That's all they've got. And that's not going to heal anything or make the tissue environment more healthy. In fact, it's just going to add toxins. It's just going to weaken functions. It's going to replace functions that your body's going to start saying, well, you don't need me anymore. And that like a muscle that doesn't get used, like people who take melatonin to sleep, your body is supposed to produce melatonin. So if you're depending on that, it's making your body produce even less and less and less. Okay. So Hippocrates, we've all probably heard of, he was credited with saying, let thy food be thy medicine, and thy medicine be thy food. So everything you're eating should be helping you, not causing these problems. Because these problems didn't just appear. That all those things I listed are caused by whatever you're putting into your mouth. That's what I tell, and your emotions. Okay, so what the body actually needs to help with all of those is more liquids and liquefied food. It's actually been said that whatever age you are, that's the percentage of food you should be consuming in a liquefied form. It's going to help your intestines. So yes, if you're 60% of your diet should be liquefied. The intestines, when you're less than 10 and a teenager, everybody talks about having, what do they call that, an iron cast stomach or whatever? Cast iron stomach, okay? 'Cause, yeah, you can take so much abuse and, eat a whole pizza every single day and, you know what I mean? So as we get older though, those intestines get weaker and weaker and they lose their ability to even hold themselves up anymore. So I have pictures of x-rays of literal actual intestines that show them just drooping or really narrow or really ballooned out. And you can see that the shape in the irises also. But so more liquids, it will help your body digest easily. And each year we get older, that percentage should be increased. And you will see that you will feel like you have light coming through your intestines from the back, like you were shining a flashlight from the back through the front. I mean, how many people can say they feel like that after they eat a meal? Where you feel like light is inside your body and not just heavy density, where, usually, especially with restaurants, you go to a restaurant, you leave there feeling sick, full and sick. And they're designed to have addicting foods that are going to make you want to crave them and come back. But okay, so more smoothies, that's one way to get them liquefied.
So what about freezing fruit, fresh fruit, and then using it in smoothies?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I do, even though there won't be the enzymes because they'll have frozen. But yes, that's still considered raw. And that's just, what's the word? It's not common sense, but practical. It's just the way, fruit goes so bad so easily. It's just the way it has to be. But sure, if you had fruit trees, you would like star fruit right now. A lot of my smoothies are frozen bananas and star fruit from the tree. Bananas are going to be a foundation, and bananas are not a fruit, they're a grass. So that's the flower, the banana, the petal is the leaves of the flower. So more fruit, and these things I'm going to tell you are going to be opposite of what a doctor would tell you, or most people would tell you. They would tell you to stay away from fruit most times. That fruit is bad, it's going to cause candida, it's going to cause hyperglycemia, and even if you already have those conditions and you're not processing sugar anymore, well, fruit is going to heal you and heal that exact problem. So more raw vegetables with the living enzymes. We need those enzymes. We're born with a limited amount, and every time you're just eating cooked food with no raw food in it at all, you're just using up enzymes that will never come back. And that's why, like after a Thanksgiving dinner meal, a lot of people are taking naps for 2 hours because they don't have the energy. Food should be giving you energy, not zapping your energy. So that would be a symptom that you didn't have any enzymes in your meal if you're tired after you eat. Okay, so soups are another way to get liquids in the body. Liquids make the digestion process easier. And it's a little bit of an oxymoron here because when you're eating, you shouldn't necessarily be drinking a lot of liquids like a glass of water with your meal because that's going to dilute the digestive enzymes. You should wait until your body naturally says, okay, I'm thirsty, like 20 minutes later or whatever, and then drink your water or whatever you're going to drink. But if you're drinking while you're eating all the time, you're diluting your body's ability to digest more quickly. But in a soup, I consider soups vegetable teas. So you're getting all the medicinal properties out of those vegetables and you're getting the fiber. And I have many soup recipes in these books, and onions are always a base for that because onions are a way to cut mucus in the body. They're very medicinal. They're highly antibiotic for your immune system. So salads, of course, are the raw things. But once you get used to making smoothies, even with vegetables, which I have a couple recipes in there, then, really, if you want to be efficient in how you're eating and digesting, really just put that salad in a blender and drink it, is what I'm saying, like a V8. If you want to, unless you want to just sit there like a cow and chomping and chomping and chomping, you know what I mean? Like I went Hippocrates down in West Palm Beach. Has anybody ever been down there? Hippocrates Health Center. They attract people from all over the world who want to be healed from cancers and really bad, diabetes, whatever illnesses. And they just use a lot of natural foods, like sprouts is their thing. They have salad bars with every kind of sprout there. They're like a foot long, just radishes, broccoli, sunflower, whatever. It's just all sprouts. So you make a big plate of sprouts and you're just eating it endlessly. And I just was recently there for a meeting they had. And I was thinking they would do much better if they just stuck this in the blender. Everybody is there just to heal. Like, it's not about having to chew long sprouts. So anyway, consider putting it in the blender. It would be more beneficial and easier for your body because the blender becomes your stomach. The blender becomes your chewing that you're not necessarily doing enough of. And when you're drinking it, you can still chew that in your mouth so that your saliva has a chance to let your stomach know that the food is on its way down. Okay, so in the mornings, I definitely use and recommend a whole lemon in a glass of about 16 ounces of water, hopefully purified and not with chlorine and all that other stuff, which I recommend reverse osmosis filters under your sink so you don't have to use bottles and then you're not adding to all the trash vortexes all over the planet.
The enzymes, if you heat that water, when you say lemon water, are you talking about boiling water?
No, not boiling water.
Okay, what would you recommend?
Just water like this. But like I have the reverse osmosis filter, so I just take it out of my filter. I have a little thing on my sink that I use for the filtered water.
Yeah.
Or if you don't want to get that, you don't plan on getting that, Walmart actually sells in the 5, you can get a 3-gallon or 5-gallon of blue containers, and that is reverse osmosis water. That is very purified water, which is 98% pure. And it's like 25 cents a gallon.
Walmart's water is 25 cents a gallon.
If you get the Culligan, dispenser, and the big 3-gallon or 5-gallon, or they even have 1 gallon.
I have a water dispenser, but what I just buy out of where I thought that was 5 gallons.
Oh, well then from Walmart.
So, no, but so if I use Walmart's water and a water dispenser, that would be good, is that what
Well,
you're
you can refill them.
Yeah.
You can refill them, and that water is reverse osmosis. But I don't recommend getting like a gallon off the shelf that says distilled water, which is supposed to be 100% filtered, but it's so clean and pure that it actually absorbs all the plastic, and then it tastes like cardboard. And if you're not putting it in glass, in other words, it's leaching the plastic out of the container.
What about those zero filters?
Yeah, I looked into that because I wanted my son to have some pure water while he was at college, and he's been raised with me, so, and he's totally rebelling, saying tap water is fine. And I actually sent away for the report from the city of Gainesville, how's the tap water? There's nothing I could do. I was looking into, getting him one of those Brita's or zero filters, which sure, it's better than tap water and better than bottled water. But I'm saying Walmart is 25 cents a gallon. So I don't know. And the other thing you should know about liquids like water, like we were just talking about it, your body wants the water to be room temperature. It doesn't want ice cold water because then it's just going to sit in your stomach and wait until it becomes the temperature of your body before it will pass through the sphincter down into the rest, the small intestines and all of that. So drinking it at room temperature means you'll get access to it faster.
Back to the lemon, are you talking about just 16 ounces of water with lemon juice or?
No, a fresh squeezed lemon. Fresh squeezed lemon with a lemon press. Get yourself a lemon press. I use it every single day.
So you don't have to eat the lemon, just have.
No, you don't eat the lemon. You just press the lemon into about 16 ounces of water, and then I add raw honey. So yeah, the reason you want to drink the lemon in the morning is because it will clean your liver from what it processed overnight. All the stuff it was doing while you were sleeping, it'll be like rinsing your liver off first thing in the morning. So I don't have coffee and never have had coffee. And hopefully, maybe you can try dandelion root tea instead of coffee because coffee is acidic. And if you're drinking coffee on an empty stomach, you're using the tannins in the coffee are turning your stomach into leather.
So
That's a lovely look.
So what about teas, different types?
Oh,
of
herbal teas, absolutely.
Like ginger.
Absolutely, herbal teas all day long.
Okay. I drink
If you're just drinking Lipton tea, I really don't see what the point is, or Earl Grey. To me, those are all a waste of time. There's so many beneficial, great herbal teas in Publix,
What about hydrating drinks like Gatorade and?
Gatorade is actually something that they determined was rotting people's teeth, the dentist said, like faster than even Mountain Dew.
That's when everyone was drinking in West Virginia?
Yes, in the coal mines. Yeah, I definitely do not recommend Gatorade. If you're drinking that for electrolytes and all that, I'm going to give you better examples. So, raw honey is extremely beneficial, antibacterial, and all these ingredients I'm mentioning, they're all fully described in this book in great detail, all the bee products like the honey. But not cooked honey. Make sure it's not cooked honey or you're going to be creating bacteria that you don't want. It's raw, especially if it could be local honey. This Nano Greens product is a green powder that I have been using for over 20 years because it has spirulina and chlorella, which are the two most important for B12, for that chlorophyll I talked about in the beginning. The source of all food on the planet is the sun. The most chlorophyll in any plant is in chlorella and spirulina. So if you want the most potent source of that sun, it's spirulina or chlorella, which Nano Greens, I do have some here. I'll just show you one. And if somebody's going to get pregnant, like your daughter or granddaughter or whatever, have them clean themselves out before they get pregnant and they won't have any morning sickness and all those things, which are really signs of a toxic condition that your body's trying to clean now that you're pregnant. So this will clean your blood, clean your cells. It has way more than just that. And I have a lot of descriptions in this book about it. But that's my morning coffee. But I drink that after the lemon water. that.
Where do you get it?
Well, so that's what I'm saying. You have to have someone who carries it, which I do. These sell for $59.95. They do have all the probiotics and all that stuff. It's dehydrated, juiced fruits and vegetables. So it's not just fruits and vegetables dehydrated. They were juiced first, which means you're getting that much more in a dehydrated form. And the nano part of it means it's at a nanomolecular sized molecule. So it easily passes through the cell membrane and it's lipid loving, so the cells actively suck it up. So and it's great tasting.
So, excuse me for asking so many questions, but I'm thinking about the probiotics. What do you recommend on probiotics? Do you recommend them?
Well, if you eat the way I'm going to suggest here, your body will naturally attract all the right probiotics. It's whatever you're eating, there's a bacteria in the world that will come and be present with you and love whatever you're eating. There's bacteria that love battery acid. There's bacteria that love, frozen temperatures in the tundra, and they can still be alive and eat, whatever is available as food. There's bacteria that live in, volcanic lava that don't die, and bacteria that have been on the spaceships and the moon. I mean, there's bacteria on the planet that will eat the oil spills, in the Gulf of Mexico. So whatever you're eating, you're attracting, just like that compost pile, whatever you're feeding. So a lot of times with parasites even, I'll tell people it's kind of like when you have, let's say, a bunch of sugar on your counter, and yeah, there's going to be a bunch of ants, but do you need to go on a medicine to get rid of the ants, or what if you just cleaned the counter? Then the ants will go away. So if you clean the tissues, the parasites will go away. So, because if you don't give them a food supply, they're only there because there's a food supply for them. So if you want the right bacteria, you have to feed them the right foods, the healthy stuff. So seaweeds are super nutritious on the planet, super nutrient dense. As I said, they're one of the closest sources to the sun. Plus, they're bathing in an ocean of 104 minerals. All 104 minerals on the planet. Everyone says the topsoil is deficient and it's not in the topsoil, but it didn't leave the planet. Where did it go? It's in the ocean. The ocean is rich with all 104 minerals. That is your multivitamin. Seaweed, kelp, especially kelp.
Is it supposed to be good for underactive thyroid or?
Kelp is great for either one, hyper or hypothyroid. In fact, kelp is the highest source of iodine in any whole food source. It's also, I have another slide about kelp. It's also the highest in a lot of things. So I tell people that's your multivitamin. And I say do a tablespoon of granular kelp in twice a day, like in at least once a day. But I have 2 recipes. If you were going to do a fast reset, I call it a reset for 30 days. You would put a tablespoon in the morning smoothie and 1 in the night smoothie. It's not like, I'll take 3 tablets of kelp and you think you're going to get what you need. You need tablespoons full.
Right.
Okay, so granulated, by the way, you won't taste it. If you get the powder, which is all any store sells, then you will taste this fishy, slimy flavor that will change. If granulated, you won't taste it. It won't affect the consistency. And you can order that online, and it's only like $5 a pound. And I say get a pound. Get loose granulated kelp. Don't buy tablets. Don't buy these little tiny shakers. Buy a pound I have like 6 pounds at all times in my house. It's constantly in its own jar, so I can just take my tablespoon and put it into my smoothies. Okay, and dulse is another huge seaweed that I'll talk more about. But bananas and dates, that's the foundation of your glucose. That's the thing that's going to help get rid of cancers. It's going to help balance your candida. It's going to feed your body the glucose that is more important than everyone's so fixated on protein. Glucose is where everyone is deficient. Okay, let me keep going. Okay, so sources of iron. I mentioned the iron metabolism deficiencies. I see people not properly metabolizing iron. The solution is not to get an iron supplement, which, just so you know, there was a year, I think it was 2005 in Utah, the #1 cause of death in children was Flintstones vitamins with iron, because your body cannot choose how much iron it's going to take or use when you force it to take an isolated extracted form of iron in a, chemical way. If you take it in a whole food source, then it is free to decide, okay, I want this much, I don't need all of that, so the rest I will pass through. When you take it in a whole food source, you get all the balancing components that the whole plant has in nature, the way it's meant to. If you just isolate something out, you're throwing all the chemistry and choices away, and it's making it synthetic. So, the dark blues and purple fruits, definitely put those in your smoothies. Blackstrap molasses is different than grandma's molasses. It's the one that is the waste product of making processed refined white sugar, all the stuff they threw away that has all the iron, the minerals that they feed to horses a lot of times. We should actually be eating more like horses. Horses are so muscular. Do they eat cows for protein? What are they eating? Plants. What are cows eating for their protein? They're not eating anything to make them, that whole protein thing is really just a myth. So hemp seeds, are also high in iron and protein. And I use protein in quotation marks, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Hopefully I'll get to it. But hemp seeds are high in iron. These are things I would put in a smoothie. Dulse, very high in iron. Seaweed, red beets, great for building the blood. It's better if you juice raw beets rather than get that beet powder stuff. And I'm not talking about cooked red beets. This is raw red beets juiced. There's a delicious liver cleansing juice in my book. It is so delicious. It's like lip smacking good, I think. Okay, pumpkin seeds, higher in iron. Pumpkin seeds are also great for getting rid of parasites, raw. Make sure they're raw, not roasted. And the dark green leafy vegetables, parsley, like tabbouleh or dandelion, absolutely. Wheatgrass. Wheatgrass is really hard to take on an empty stomach, but that in Hippocrates, I mentioned they all do 2 ounces of wheatgrass every single day. That's like their number one thing they want to do.
I bought wheatgrass whole, but I bought me one of those little, like, ball containers that have the little openings so you can actually root them. Have them grow so you get them as sprouts, and then you take them when they're sprouts and put them in your stuff.
Yeah, so it's wheat berries, turning into grass, which the cats love. And that's how the whole thing got started with Anne Wigmore, who started the Hippocrates, is because she observed her cat loving the wheatgrass. And that's where this whole wheatgrass movement came from, her watching her cats eating the wheatgrass.
I was reading recently, I like cucumbers, and I didn't know it, but fresh cucumbers have about 10 to 12 of all the B vitamins that you need. Just a fresh cucumber.
Yeah, fresh cucumbers, I have that on another slide too, and they're great for natural sodium, which a lot of people are also deficient in. And that sodium is the difference between a young baby and a tiny tot or less than 10 years old. How they're so flexible, they can be Gumby and turn themselves into a pretzel and do back bends and splits and, all kinds of things with their body. And then what happens as we get older, we start changing our form where we're actually slowing down and turning literally into a rock. That's the other end of not having sodium, where calcium becomes the dominant mineral that's calcifying you into a rock. Versus if you have lots of sodium, you're flexible, the calcium stays in solution, it's not like robbing your bones and it's not being deposited everywhere. That's the problem. Calcium is coming out of the bones and it's being deposited in places it should not be. So sodium, natural sodium, keeps it in solution. Brazil nuts are the only nut that contain all the amino acids, and all the amino acids are actually what form a protein chain, is a bunch of different individual amino acids. And if you're eating like a steak because you're like, oh, that's high in protein, really all it means is that it has a chain of individual amino acids tied together with very strong, hard to break peptide bonds that the body has to use lots and lots of hydrochloric acid to rip those amino acids apart before it can absorb them through the intestinal wall as individuals is how the body wants them. It wants them as individual amino acids. So then on the other side, it can decide, okay, now what do I want to make this chain of individual amino acids into, and where, does it need to go? So if you're eating fully formed chains of individual amino acids, that's what's causing so much lack of hydrochloric acid, because it's creating, whereas like plants and fruits, there's just a variety of all kinds of individual amino acids. They're already apart. The body can easily use those and just go right through the wall, no hydrochloric acid needed, and form whatever it wants. So you're skipping that really hard, difficult step. Meats are the worst. Red meat's the worst for breaking those apart. But yeah, Brazil nut has all the amino acids that exist in one nut. And, of course, they say one Brazil nut has your day's supply of selenium.
Yes.
And yellow dock is a wild edible plant that is very, very high in iron. So yellow dock tea, or, put it in your smoothie. It's out there. It's in if you find it. It likes rich soil. Okay, so sources of glucose. When you know how many people are craving sugar, they need their sugar fix, at every single, whatever time of the day, they start losing energy. People want sugar. They're like, I'm tired. I need sugar to pick me up. Okay, that's actually not even people who have diabetes. That's what they tell them to do, is eat chocolate or sugar, or a sugary drink, or I don't know. That's their solution, and that's actually what's creating the problem to begin with. When your body is craving sugar, you need a fruit smoothie. That's what you really need. Remember that. If you're craving chocolate, you need a fruit smoothie. Because when I don't have fruit smoothies for a day or two, if I'm traveling, I will start craving chocolate myself. And I know, and that doesn't satisfy. It doesn't turn that off, because it wants glucose. But the only thing your taste buds know is I need something sweet. So that's why people crave chocolate, caffeine, and sweets, because they don't have enough glucose. That's actually an exact symptom of needing more glucose. So it's a fruit smoothie, and you should have 2 a day. 1 in the morning to get you started, and 1 at night when you want your sweet dessert. There's all kinds of flavors. Banana is always the base. Make your bananas. What I was gonna bring today, I was gonna show you, because so many people have ice cream at the end of the day, which is like really bad. And, just because they want the consistency, they want the flavor, you can make that taste just like that with frozen bananas and maybe a little bit of oat milk. Oat milk seems to be what my preference is when I want something creamy like that. And then you put the blackstrap molasses in there. It's like chocolate syrup. That's how you make your chocolate milkshake, and you can make it as thick as you want based on how much, like oat milk, for instance, not dairy. Don't put regular milk in. I was going to make this for you, but I was like, how is that even going to be possible? And then I thought maybe I'll give you each a spoon, but I just didn't think the bananas would stay frozen. It's so easy to make. And if you have a NutriBullet, and if you don't have one, get one. The NutriBullet has a cup that's about this size, and that's my dessert night cup. And I put 2 whole bananas, which are 4 halves, in there with about this much oat milk, and then just drizzle the blackstrap molasses, and it is so creamy. You could either eat it with a spoon or with a... There's somebody in there.
Yeah.
All right, so you can also make creamsicle flavor if you make fresh squeezed orange juice, and don't use orange juice from the store, which is cooked and pasteurized and terrible. People who work in orange juice plants, multiple different types of plants, have all told me they would never drink the orange juice after they see how it is made. It is very easy living in Florida to get your own oranges. And I have a press, like a professional press, that will never break. Like those little ones you squeeze, they always break. Get the professional, you pull it down with your hand, stainless steel, and it will never break. You have your hand up? No dairy. No dairy. Dairy forms mucus in the body, and it's acidic. That's why people always clear their throat or they have a lot of phlegm.
What about for Juice Plus?
Yeah, those little capsules.
They're made with whole.
Yeah, that's probably a similar concept as this powder of nanogreens. But, to me, that little tiny capsule, like, how's that gonna give you a 16 ounces of fresh, raw vegetable juice?
Well, in addition to.
Sure, I mean, that's kind of like how I use the nano greens, except the reason I have that is the spirulina and the chlorella, but it also has fruits and vegetables. So if it didn't have spirulina and chlorella, I would find a different product that did. That's my main thing for taking that. Okay. So sources of calcium, again, not calcium supplements. Calcium supplements are mostly just limestone. We are not plants. We cannot stick our fingers into the soil and expect to uptake limestone. But a plant can. That's why you want to eat the plant that is high in calcium, which changes it in a process known as biological transmutation into a living form that then our living tissues can now use. But if you're trying to take a calcium limestone tablet and expecting to be able to absorb that, that's what causes a lot of the calcium deposits. So these are whole food sources of calcium. Again, kelp is very high up there. Sesame seeds are actually the #1 highest source, which are in tahini. But I don't really use that kind of tahini stuff myself. So it is something you can add to your smoothie, I guess, sesame seeds, the whole sesame seeds, that would be the better way. But the dark green leafy raw vegetables, collards are the highest in that category, then kale, then spinach, then dandelion. So again, what is protein? I already explained that. Anything high in protein, you might notice, is also high in fat. Name something you consider high in protein.
Chicken.
Okay, chicken, high in fat. Peanuts, high in fat. They're all, fat and protein are almost the same thing in that case. I mean, I know we separate them, but anything you consider, society considers high in protein is guaranteed high in fat.
So if you take the skin off the chicken, this was a question, would that take it?
No, chicken is still fat. And actually, almost 100% of chickens, they say, have tumors that they've cut out of them.
What about turkey?
Well, again, any animal product has 0 fiber in it. So, and it's that much farther removed from the sun. So you're eating something that's not going to be easily passed through the intestines, because anything lacking fiber is just going to kind of rot in there, and it's going to putrefy in 100-degree temperature for at least 3 days. So it's going to be rotted material going through the blood at that point.
And what about eggs? That's a source of.
So eggs, again, no fiber. And eggs, if you're going to eat eggs, do it raw, because once you cook the egg, you change that clear liquid part of it into a white. That shows you that you just denatured the protein. Just that act, you can see the chemical act occur while you're frying it. And don't forget, when you're cooking eggs and you have them in your frying pan, they're very hard to get out, right? Aren't they like stuck in the pan? It's like you have to scrape them out. Okay, Teflon, yeah. So just imagine that's what they're doing in your intestines. They're stuck in there too. And eggs are the thing they grow all viruses and pathogens on in the lab. Because an egg is the source of life. So that's their favorite food. Viruses and pathogens love eggs. So you're feeding viruses and pathogens when you eat eggs.
Aren't there good fats though? I mean,
Yes, avocados. I have a list. Let's keep going.
No, let's do some good things.
Okay, so here's the cleansing whole food sources of protein. Protein again in quotes, because if you're having a variety, you're not gonna be missing out on anything. So yeah, hemp seeds, very high again. The spirulina is like 85% protein. Sunflower seeds are considered a complete food. Again, raw, don't want these roasted. Pumpkin seeds, raw. Bee pollen. I believe there's a story about the Egyptians actually built the pyramids on bee pollen and honey and garlic, of course, onions and garlic. That's what gave them their stamina and their endurance. Moringa powder, that's a great one for, they use that in third world countries for wasting disease, where someone's just not able to gain weight, and that actually puts good weight back on them. It's in my Wild Edibles book, actually, with how great of a nutritious powder. So I put that in my smoothie. Quinoa, better than rice. Quinoa is also considered practically a complete food. If you're gonna I don't even make rice. And quinoa, you can make like a salad, the same way you would make salad. Instead of the lettuce, you can put quinoa in. You can put your raw avocados, raw cucumbers, raw scallions, raw tomatoes, raw garlic, and make a quinoa salad that way. And so I consider that okay. I don't feel bloated after that. Yeah, avocado is like a complete food. You can raise a baby on avocado if you don't have mother's milk, which is, my son loved avocados growing up.
Question on
Keep the quinoa, are you talking about it raw?
No, you can sprout quinoa, but I just cook it. But there's plenty of sprouted quinoa recipes, and they're very cute with their little tails when they come out, It's easy to sprout quinoa too.
But you say you cook it, so.
I personally, I just, whatever. I don't notice that I feel stuffed or full. So I'm going by how do I feel, which raw foods get digested in the upper half of the stomach. So it actually makes you feel like you just did 100 crunches versus cooked foods get digested in the lower half of the stomach. So they blow your stomach out. And that's why you have to unbutton your pants and lay on the ground. And you feel like you're just so full and you're covering yourself up because you just feel sick. But raw food makes you feel like it's like you've got a hard stomach, and because it shrinks the inside of you as well. And because it's so efficient of a food with its own enzymes. So yeah, nuts are all full of fat, and I just really don't even bother with nuts anymore. They're not necessary.
You said Brazil nuts.
Yeah, Brazil nuts is the one exception if you're going to want a nut, but I barely even have that. But my diet has evolved, so I'm giving you like the cliff notes of, that's kind of a lot of the foundation in this book, but I'm even writing a more advanced book, but you kind of need this one first before you get to the advanced one. But, so here's what kelp has. It's the highest source of iodine, as we talked about. Dulse is next. It's the second highest source of calcium. All these Irish moss, agar, those are seaweeds as well, and that's the order of how they go for calcium. Collards is the number one green. So you could put collards in your juicer. How many people have a juicer? All right, you need to get a juicer. You need to get a NutriBullet. You need to get a Vitamix or a Blendtec or a Ninja blender. You can't do this stuff on those little blenders that can't even whip anything up. So potassium, a lot of people are deficient in potassium. Second highest source of potassium, and dulse is first. It's the highest natural sodium, then the dulse. I always show people the dulse and the kelp. The dulse and the kelp, they're always up in there in the top 4. Highest source of magnesium. Calcium does need magnesium. And actually, don't take a magnesium tablet again. Besides getting it in a whole food source, it's topically applied is the best way to absorb it in the body. So they have it in a gel or a lotion form, and you'll see it will make you feel your muscles much more relaxed if you apply magnesium gel or lotion topically, not orally. And I do that. I like Ancient Minerals brand. That's the one I use, Ancient Minerals.
Ancient minerals.
Ancient minerals, because we need, to absorb calcium, you do need magnesium, but not in the supplement form. If you want, kelp is your supplement. That's what I'm saying. Kelp, a tablespoon at least every day in your smoothie. Where else are you going to put it? And
So
then,
where do you buy that?
so there's a couple of websites I usually recommend. One is called Monterey Bay Spice Company, but Amazon sells it too. So just look around, but just put in granulated kelp, because I don't know why all the stores only carry powdered, and you're not gonna like the powder. But some people have told me they prefer the powder because they don't have the texture of the granules, which I don't really notice, but some people are very texture sensitive, I guess.
You said Monterey.
Yeah, Monterey, like in California,
Monterey.
Bay. So it must come from Monterey Bay, because that's what the company's called. Monterey Bay Spice Company. Sells it for $5 a pound, plus shipping though. So Amazon, I think, sells it for like $11 a pound. So you have to just decide what source you want. All right, so second highest source of iron, dulse is number 1. Everybody I mentioned, all this iron deficiency stuff, anemia, low oxygen, so much of that is taking place on the planet. Dulse is a seaweed also, and I recommend the whole leaf form of dulse. versus the granular form. Like the whole wheat form is dehydrated seaweed, literally, and you just rip off like a 2-inch piece and put it in your smoothie. And it also removes heavy metals. So other liquids, you remember how we said more liquids, more liquids. Celery juice is highly recommended, and really you should be doing that every 2 or 3 days regularly, just to flush yourself from head to toe. It gets into the brain, it helps remove old pharmaceutical drugs from the liver, from the thyroid. Of course, it cleans the intestines, helps to change over that flora and the environment. It's full of electrolytes. Whoever wanted Gatorade, use this. But also the cucumber apple I put, that's your Gatorade, which is 50% cucumber and 50% apple in a juicer. So you need a juicer to do this, which you can get like a Breville juicer from Bed Bath & Beyond with their 20% off coupon. That's what I use, Breville juicer. Watermelon juice, that's another great one at night. I love that one at night. I'll slice a whole, big fat watermelon and take a section, about an inch or so, and put that in my Vitamix blender, just the watermelon, no added water, with 2 squeezed limes. So just the juice of 2 squeezed limes. And then I put a drop of spearmint, doTERRA spearmint oil, or if you have spearmint, put like 3 leaves in, but spearmint just doesn't last. So I just gave up on that and I just used the oil, the essential oil. But that is so hydrating. That is so great for flushing your kidneys. So your kidneys need flushing. Like you change your oil filter in your car and your lawnmowers, you need to flush your own filters. There's no other way. There's no other way than food or herbs. And this is how you do it. And then I have that liver cleansing juice recipe I mentioned, which is carrots, cucumber, a red-skinned apple, a red beet, ginger, a whole lemon, and something dark and green like collards or kale. And it is so delicious. And it's all those things are specifics for your liver, to clean your liver, to flush your liver, and they will make your liver release toxins that it's holding. So usually you will evacuate within an hour or by the next morning, and it will be red in the toilet. So a lot of people always say, oh, I can't eat that, I'm allergic to so many things. I can't have celery, I'm allergic. I can't have tomatoes, I'm allergic. I can't have, whatever. Hear that. So my quick question is always, were you allergic to that growing up? So do any of you now have allergies that you didn't have when you were growing up? So that means you've acquired the allergy because you changed some flora inside that now doesn't like that. So it's because of the flora. The flora is allergic to it, not you. So when you have cravings also, that's another thing to keep in mind. When you're getting off of the stuff that I'm saying don't eat, and you're getting onto the stuff that I'm recommending you do eat, you're going to be changing that flora. And you're going to be starving out the ones that were used to eating all the other stuff you've been eating. And you're going to think you're having these cravings like, oh, I just need this sugar, I just need this meat or whatever it is, whatever, salty potato chip, whatever it is. And it's the bacteria that you're starving out now because you're no longer feeding them what they've been eating, and they're going to be screaming mad inside of you because they're fighting for their survival at this point because you're starving them out. So they're going to be the ones with the loud voice demanding you give them that cupcake or whatever it is that you're used to giving them, until the other ones populate enough where suddenly you're going to wake up parts of your body that have been dormant and sleeping, and they just gave up on ever getting what they really wanted. Those parts are going to start waking up, and they're going to become the louder voice, and they're going to get happy. You're going to feel joy in your cells, and your cells do have a consciousness, and they are living organisms. They're one-celled organisms. They breathe, they eat, and they excrete.
Question for you. Where do you include breads? The yeast bread?
Yeah, no bread either.
Of any kind.
Why? Yeast bread.
If you want to have bread, go to the freezer section and get the sprouted grain breads, Alvarado Street or Life, what's their one? Food for Life is another good one. They have 5 grain. It's in the freezer section. They're flourless because anything that is flour, that you've processed a grain and turned it into a powdered flour, is when you add water and flour together, they make paste. So that's all you're doing in glue. That's all you're doing is making paste and glue for your intestines.
What
With
is yeast for this?
Well, I do use nutritional yeast, which some people have said that is potentially has MSG in it. I don't know if any of you've heard that. I so far I'm still using the nutritional yeast. If you had my salad over there in the green bowl, it was cauliflower, radishes, scallions, avocado, tomatoes, red-skinned apples, because it's the red skin part that has all the nutrition. Cilantro was in there. Raw pumpkin seeds, raw sunflower seeds, nutritional yeast, cranberries.
That was good.
And then the dressing is like my go-to dressing. I call it the heal thyself dressing, like healthy, but split that word and it's heal thyself, which is a base of the olive oil, fresh squeezed lemon juice, raw honey, and fresh pressed garlic. Lots and lots of fresh pressed garlic. And cucumbers are in there too. So that salad is packed. That's your meal. Like, don't think of it as a side dish. That is your meal. So half of that salad is a meal for me. I just doubled what I usually have. Okay, so acidic versus alkaline, just some examples we talked about already. What is acidic? Coffee, chocolate, alcohol, sugar, dairy, white flour, meat. These are all the acidic things. Even emotions like anger, jealousy, hatred. And, when you're constricting yourself with these negative emotions, that's creating stress in your body, and stress is acidic. Versus the things that are alkaline, which everybody needs more alkalinity in their tissues, is the raw fruits and vegetables, freshly made juices. Don't buy anything store-bought. The smoothies, sprouts, of course, are 40 times more nutritious than the parent plant. All the people who, we think gardening is hard and can't grow lettuce or whatever, but the sprout you can grow indoors and it's actually got 40 times the nutrition of the parent plant. And you can juice and put sprouts in your smoothies or juices, and they're actually a survival food. So if you wanted to prepare for a situation where you didn't have any food, get gallon cans of sprout seeds and put them in your refrigerator. That's what I have. Like the mung bean, the radish, the broccoli, sunflower. Then they grow in 3 days. There's your food.
Where's your best source of getting seeds in bulk, sprouting seeds in bulk?
You'll have to ask me like another time because I don't remember. I bought them in 2015 because there was a lot of speculation back then that the stock market was going to crash and there's going to be a food shortage, just like there still is today. So I just bought like 3 or 4 cans and I've kept them in my refrigerator, to preserve the seeds. But I lived in Montana for a time in 95, and I was actually out there with no electricity, no power, no running water, no phones back then or anything. And I was kind of on a guided journey where I was kind of being led to believe there wouldn't be any more money. So figure out what are you going to need to live on. So I was trying to grow a garden there, but their growing season is only 30 days long. So all you can grow are radishes. But I was going to have like heated underwater pipes I did buy greenhouse materials. I was going to put like heated water underneath that soil to try to, make it longer. But what it came down to after my time out there was sprouts. There's your answer. 3 days, you got your food. You don't need to wait for this big plant that's going to lose nutrition the older it gets. Sprouts and microgreens. And then the emotions of course, peace, love, relaxation, happiness, calmness. Don't be doing things in a hurry. Like make yourself slow down and be in a Zen mode, and give yourself plenty of time to get places so you're not, because that stress, that rushing is adrenaline, which is very toxic in the body. It's only supposed to be fight or flight, but then the liver is what has to metabolize it, and that strains the liver, and all those pathogens and viruses we talked about love adrenaline. Okay, let's see. So These are different smoothies I regularly have. This Reset Fruit Smoothie is in my book. It has chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds, dulse, kelp, ashwagandha root, licorice root, moringa powder, bee pollen, and then it has banana, always as the base, and then I like the dark blues and purples because for iron, and then I always add though also some yellows and oranges like mango, pineapple, frozen. But the bananas, you buy them, I buy like 3 hands at a time. When they get ready to be, black spots, you peel them, break them in half, and put them in quart-sized freezer bags. So my freezer is just loaded with bananas all the time. And I eat probably 4 bananas every day. In the beginning, when I was eating that many, I did feel a little bloated because I was like, oh, am I creating candida? So I cut it back, but now I actually eat more than I did in the beginning. So there was a changeover of the flora. So you will have detox symptoms. Let me actually say that. Because a lot of people will say, oh, I felt better before on what I was eating before. Because changing all this over is going to be like doing a whole house, demolition on the inside of you. And emotions are physical molecules stored in your cells. So when you start cleaning your cells out, emotions are going to come out too. Irritation, impatience, anger, but they'll be fleeting. They won't last, they won't be a long movie, but you will notice spikes as you clean out.
They won't ruin our marriage, will they?
I did some heavy duty cleanses, like intestinal cleanses, and I am not a person who has ever thrown anything in anger. And I was in the bathroom because I was doing colonics too. I did all kinds of heavy duty experiments with cleansing, and those and I was prepared. I knew the emotions were stuck in physical cells. So this was like a 10-day doing colonics for 10 days in a row, because if you just did one, and you can do these at home yourself, if you just did one, it barely even gets anywhere up there because it's like soaking a dirty pan. You don't just try to scrub something off. So the water going in, which was 5 gallons of water every day, took, can only go so far until that tissue was soaked, and then it got further and further in there. And then it was in, some of those releases, because the Gerson therapy, which she mentioned, I'm certified in the Gerson therapy. In order to get certified, we had to actually do it ourselves for 5 months to the letter. And it's 5 coffee enemas every single day and 13 raw vegetable juices every single day. And you have to make fresh squeezed orange juice in addition every morning. And then there was a potassium broth soup for the end of the day for all the potassium and the minerals, which are under the potato skin. So don't peel potatoes or carrots or any of that. But in that process, these emotions did come out. And it was so crazy though. During the, and I photographed things too to show people I wasn't even eating solid food really, and how much just continued to come out that they would never have believed, because it's like, well, where was it? Where is it? But the intestines pull it in from all the other tissues, and they pull it in to exit. So anyway, that's a whole other story. Let me just try to get through. I just want you to know emotions. So yeah, I threw something in the bathroom in frustration, and I was like, wow, where did that come from? It was so unlike me. I was just trying to get the things to fit together, and I just threw some. It was just, I've never done that in my whole life.
And you never did again, right?
And my mother was there because I had a 2-year-old at the time. And she was helping me, watch him, because this was all consuming. This is a full-time job. And because you do the colonics twice a day, 12 hours apart, 7:30 in the morning, 7:30 at night. Get your 5 gallons of water from Walmart, it has to be pure. And so I needed help with the 2-year-old, and I was yelling at her, and then I would apologize. Sorry, I told you this is going to make things come out like this, but it would keep happening. I would yell at her, and she just wouldn't, forgive me easily. But it was so demanding. But then you can actually get addicted to those coffee enemas. And there's actually, I wrote how I did those coffee enemas. The recipe is in there. But I would no longer recommend the coffee enemas necessarily. And the reason that they use coffee enemas is because the caffeine in the coffee, when rectally inserted, causes the liver to dump toxins. When you orally drink caffeine through coffee, it causes the liver to hang on to the toxins. It's the opposite. So that's why coffee enemas cause the liver to release. When it's rectally applied, when it's orally, it causes it to hang on. Yeah, so those are some recipes. And then these are the superfoods. So many of these I have every single day. I kind of listed everything I have every single day. And like I just mentioned, that salad has like 16 of them. So blackstrap molasses is a big deal. So if you want your chocolate at the end of the day, chocolate ice cream, have that banana smoothie with the blackstrap. Yeah, I'll let you take a picture. Raw cacao, that's how you could get your chocolate fix too. Put that in the banana smoothie. Onions and scallions, as I mentioned, cut mucus.
If you wanted to make an onion soup, could you use the beef bone broth? Where does that come in?
I definitely don't recommend the bone broth.
No bone broth.
And you remember how when we were growing up, everybody always thought the liver was so healthy to eat. Like, I mean, my mother had to force us to eat it. We would put it in the mashed potatoes, anything to get that taste. The liver is where all the toxins are stored in the animal. You're eating like concentrated toxins. But the bone broth, same thing. It's like, if you're looking for a broth, like you're doing it just to have a broth.
Well, I want to make an onion soup, which I think.
Okay, so all my soups are water-based. You put water as the base. You don't put any spices when you're cooking them, because if you cook spices, you turn them into an irritant, and you want the spices to be raw also. So I add the spices after it's in the bowl. Like I will load on coriander, turmeric, ginger powder, sometimes curry, sometimes cumin, after it's in the bowl, but never when it's cooked. And so my soups always have the onions, potatoes with the skin, like either the golden ones or red ones. Sweet potatoes are also very great to add in your soup. And then lots and lots of garlic, because garlic, you're making a medicinal soup. And then you can, there's different flavors, like you can add lentils or, you know, butternut squash, but it's always just water when you're cooking it. You don't need any fancy broth. And then you add those spices after with some sea salt and some fresh ground black pepper, and you add like fresh raw cilantro afterwards, or parsley, to the bowl of soup, and fresh diced tomatoes, like never cooked tomatoes. They lose all their flavor and all their abilities. Always have them raw. Put them on the soup with raw scallions. Like I have this little salad on top of my soups, and I'm always like, you cannot buy this in any restaurant. It is the most delicious, satisfying soup. And the onions and the garlic, they will make your nose run, and you will clean out. You will clean out in the toilet.
So bouillon, you couldn't use bouillon then?
Well, if you're just using it for a flavor, is that why?
Well, no, just that.
You wouldn't want to. It's so high in sodium, and you don't want any animal products. Like, what is your reason for using it? Because if it's for
I'm thinking that might be put in the soup. I remember my mom.
yeah, well, I know everybody put broths and all this kind of stuff, but you don't need to at all, is what I'm saying. I was going to have a restaurant several times. I looked into having a restaurant. So I was like, you cannot buy this stuff anywhere. But it's, you know, ridiculous. I wouldn't want to. So I have a recipe book instead, but I would make it, you know, it's hard to like bring something to a class of 30 people or whatever. But a big pot of soup I make, it lasts me, you know, 4 days, and there's your food every day. So you have your fruit smoothie in the morning after your lemon juice, your nano greens. Well, actually, let me go to that. I think I have a slide about that. This is my typical day. Fresh squeezed lemon juice, like I said, I put raw honey and cayenne pepper too. The more cayenne you can add, the better, because that's a stimulant that increases circulation everywhere. Second most important heart herb. I add a drop of doTERRA ginger oil and the raw honey. Pour on the raw honey. That's superfood nutrition. This is your coffee, this lemon thing. It even gives me way more energy than the nano greens. Then I either have a celery juice, not every day, or the liver cleansing juice. Like I kind of do one, I bounce them back and forth to flush more. You always want to be cleaning and flushing. Like everybody's so preoccupied with cleaning their houses and cleaning their cars. Does anybody ever worry about cleaning the insides of their body? Like, clean the insides of your body all the time, and you'll prevent so many things, and things will just go away, and you'll feel so much better. So then, yeah, my main Then I have the fruit smoothie. You know, there's so many different kinds. This liquid reset one is the power one though. When I need power, mental, you know, something high mental endurance, that one, there's nothing more powerful. That has dates in it too, dates, like 3 dates. And it's not for the flavor. It's for the potassium of the dates, the fiber of the dates. They clean your intestines. They scrub your intestines. They help with candida. They help with hypoglycemia. And then, yeah, a soup or salad, always an avocado. I even put avocado on my soup, is what I'm saying. Like raw. You need to add your raw ingredients to your soups. You wouldn't believe how great they taste.
They're 49 cents this week at Aldi's.
Well, I buy mine at BJ's or Sam's, you know, and I don't worry about that being avocado. Or organic. And then at night, yeah, my body always wants something sweet, but it's because I have a lot of dreams too. So I'm actually working a lot during the night. I sleep with a notebook next to me under my pillow and a flashlight. I'm always writing. But anyway, you need energy to go through the night. That's when your body's doing all its work, detoxing, getting stuff out from the day, and the liver's cleaning, the kidneys cleaning. Either that or I have watermelon juice, which I just described, I was going to make that even today, because you need a powerful blender. It makes it so frothy and creamy, and there's no added water and no ice. It's just watermelon juice with the lime and the spearmint. So depending if I want chocolate flavor or the fresh squeezed, which I see I'm missing a U there, fresh squeezed orange juice and the banana with no other liquids. That's it. It tastes like a creamsicle, and it's so creamy in the NutriBullet. The NutriBullet, again, use your 20% off at Bed Bath & Beyond and get a NutriBullet. Okay, so the time to prepare your body is now. Don't wait for an emergency, a crisis where the doctor's going to scare you to death, tell you you have no other options. Start cleaning all the time. You will increase your life force, increase the light inside every cell, because it's like a dirty fish tank. They say your cells can be described like a dirty fish bowl that never gets cleaned. So clean them. There's only 2 ways, herbs or food. That's it. That's all you got. So that wraps up that. So if anyone's interested, no pressure, but I do have the books available, 200 recipes. If you're like, well, what can I eat? I don't know. But I really keep eating the same things every day now. All right, any other questions?
How long have you been on this?
So in the depth that I am now, since 2017, but that book was written in 2012 when I raised my son. He was born in 2000. So I wanted him to know all the recipes we had been using. But then after he left, you know, I've just gone to a lot of smoothies, like you just saw all those liquids. Because if you eat a lot of cooked foods, you're going to find you're always thirsty. And if you're not even sensitive enough to know when you're thirsty and you're not even drinking water at all, that's another thing. Most people are really dehydrated, which shrinks your brain, shrinks all your organs. We're, 70% water. So the more liquids you have. All right, so I'm going to stop now.
Thank you.